And what is going on, Devils fans? It is, as always, your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to a post-trade line edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as SportsWire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your now post-trade deadline New Jersey Devils. And as always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out, whether you're here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Just know that I greatly, greatly appreciate all of the support. And if you want to stay up to date with everything going around the New Jersey Devils and the Devil's State of Mind podcast, make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Devil's State of Mind, and you can also give us a follow over on Twitter at Devil's State. And before we jump into today's episode, as always, we got to shout out our wonderful sponsors here for the Hockey Podcast Network and the Devil's State of Mind podcast. First and foremost, SeatGeek. Use promo code Devil's State of Mind to get $20 off your first purchase of any sporting or ticketing event or concert event, of your choice. And I highly recommend you use it. SeatGeek does a really good job of giving you guys the best seats for the best possible price and a great way to save some money on tickets. So make sure, again, when you use SeatGeek, to use my promo code Devil's State of Mind to get $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the Hockey Podcast Network and DSMP. And guys, right now is without question the absolute best time to jump in on all of the action that DraftKings has to offer, because we are now into the middle of March. And the reason why that's significant is because the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA playoffs are right around the corner. You obviously got Major League Baseball just getting that much closer, a little less than 2 weeks away from the kickoff of the Major League Baseball season. You have Major League Soccer and European soccer going on right now. You also do have March Madness coming up in just a little bit, the biggest basketball tournament of the year. And of course, you also do have some spring football that you can get involved in as well. So this is the best time of the year if you are a sports fan. And make sure you sign up with DraftKings. Use our promo code THPN. You bet $5, you get $200 instantly in free bets. Again, when you use promo code THPN, it is the best place to get in on all of the huge cash prizes. So make sure, again, to sign up with DraftKings Sportsbook and use our promo code THPN. Bet $5 and you get $200 instantly in free bets. And last but certainly not least, a big shout out to our sponsors at Horns of Tail Napa Valley, the official wine club of the New Jersey Devils, and also the official wine sponsor of the Devil's State of Mind podcast. And use my promo code Devil's State to get 10% off all of your orders. They have some delicious tasting wine with really, really awesome Devils-specific design bottles. It is the perfect gift for the Devils fan in your life. So again, make sure to go check them out. And when you check out, use our promo code Devil's State to get 10% off all of your orders. And so again, a big shout out to all of our sponsors here for THPN and the Devil's State of Mind podcast. Yes, we are now beyond the trade deadline. Safe to say it was an up and down, I think, trade deadline. Some of the moves were expected. Some, maybe at least one, was a little bit less unexpected. And we will dive into all of them. We will tell you really more or less what that means. What do these moves mean for not just this year, but obviously going into the 2024 NHL offseason and beyond, and what Tom Fitzgerald may or may not do once we get to that point. We are also going to be talking about Matt Rempe, and you all know why we're going to talk about him. We're going to get through all the particulars that happened over this past Monday with the New Jersey Devils and much more. We're also going to be getting the official word on the NHL Global Series that the New Jersey Devils will be a part of starting next year. And then last but certainly not least, we will look at the 3 players that the Devils recalled from Utica over the last 2 days and look ahead to the next couple of games for the rest of this week. So as always, guys, we have a bunch to get to here on the Devil's State of Mind podcast. So let's not waste any more time and get rolling. And we'll get rolling and drop the puck with our first topic, and that is obviously talking about the NHL trade deadline. And so going into last Friday, really my expectation was that the Devils were going to be mainly sellers. I didn't think that they could be buyers, but I knew that there were some rumblings about the prospects of the Devils being a little bit of both, a little bit of sellers, a little bit of buyers, and kind of basically getting rid of, I guess you would say, major expiring contracts while also trying to still give this team somewhat of a chance to make a run at a playoff spot. Again, the Devils have a little more than 15 games to go this year. They're still very much in a playoff hunt. It's not over points wise or standing wise, although with the way the Devils have been playing, you kind of wonder how many more opportunities are the Devils really going to get, and if they are at all going to get their act together and start winning some games here down the stretch. But again, let's jump into what the Devils ended up doing at the deadline, and we'll start with the big one, and that is the New Jersey Devils trading Tyler Toffoli to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for a 2024 third-round pick and a 2025 second-round pick. And the Devils will also retain 50% of Tyler Toffoli's $4.25 million cap hit for the rest of the year. So the Devils trade their leading goal scorer. He finishes his short time, at least for now, in New Jersey with 26 goals on the year, and he also added in 44 points overall. And over the couple of days leading up to that, once Tyler Toffoli was a healthy scratch in the win over the St. Louis Blues last week, you kind of knew that it was pretty much a done deal that Toffoli was going to end up getting traded. And the reports that we were getting, and it was pretty much confirmed by Tom Fitzgerald once he spoke to the media after the deadline, was that the Devils and Toffoli's camp just kind of the negotiations on a long-term deal extension fell right away because of term. It seemed like, based off of what we were told, that it was supposed to be a 3 or 4 year deal, at least from what the Devils wanted, while it looked like Toffoli may have wanted a 5 to 6 year deal. And Tom Fitzgerald said that he would potentially look at Toffoli and reach out to his camp again in the offseason, but it's pretty much clear that the Devils were going nowhere with the negotiations at this point. So the Devils decided, as much as some people, including myself, were not big fans of, decided to move on to their most valuable expiring asset. And so they end up getting a couple of picks. I know people were speculating that the Devils may get a first-round pick, but after you saw what the Penguins ended up getting for Jay Gensel, I think that kind of ended any chances the Devils were going to get in terms of getting a first-round pick. So the Devils end up getting a second-round pick and a third-round pick. It's not great. I think when you look at the whole situation, I think a lot of people would have liked to get more than what they ended up getting, but at least they get something, right? And we'll see if the Devils come back around to Toffoli during the offseason. But I think, honestly, it's fair to say at this point that the Calgary Flames won the deal that the Devils had in the offseason, trading Yegor Sharangovich and a pick for Tyler Toffoli. Sharangovich just had a breakout season over with the Calgary Flames right now, looking like he's well on his way to a 30-goal year this year with the Flames. And, he's a young guy that could be part of that, new core of that Flames team. They've gotten so many assets from a lot of the guys they've traded. They got some young pieces, including Sharangovich. And I think it's working out pretty well for Calgary right now. Although, and we'll talk about the goaltending later, the situation with Markstrom certainly is the only eyesore, I guess you would say, going on with Calgary. But yeah, I don't want to. I'm not going to argue this. That I think it's fair to say that it really worked out a lot more for Calgary. Maybe Tyler Toffoli comes back in the offseason, but it's very rare that a guy who gets traded ends up re-signing with that same team that traded him. So I don't really expect that, but you never know. So yeah, that was the big move. Tyler Toffoli traded from the New Jersey Devils to the Winnipeg Jets. But the Devils were not done in terms of making trades and also making trades with the Winnipeg Jets, as later on in the day, the Devils traded Colin Miller to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for a fourth-round pick in 2026. The Devils acquired Colin Miller from the Dallas Stars in the offseason for a fifth-round pick, and in 41 games this year, Colin Miller finished his short time in New Jersey with 4 goals and 8 points. So the Winnipeg Jets added some really, really good experience and help both on the back end and in the forward core by working with the Devils on 2 separate deals, and that ends up being what it is. So both Colin Miller and Tyler Toffoli are now firmly in Winnipeg for the rest of this year. I don't expect the Devils to try to go after Colin Miller in the offseason, but you never know. They may very well like his game and want him to come back. Miller was kind of up and down. I think overall he was a pretty solid defensive defenseman. He had a tremendous slap shot, the hardest shot in the NHL. But again, expiring contract on a team that was a little bit more of a seller than really anything else. So yeah, the Devils, those were the 2 main guys that ended up getting dealt in terms of, I guess you would say, being sellers. So at that point, you were kind of wondering if the Devils were going to do anything else. Were they going to go after a goaltender? Were they going to add maybe a veteran defenseman here or there? Again, you kind of got the feeling that maybe Tom Fitzgerald would try to get the Devils a little bit of support, at least for the rest of this year. In terms of goaltending, I think it's fair to say that the Devils want both Akira Schmid and eventually Nico Daws to go down to Utica, play out the rest of the year down there and develop, and then maybe even get another year down there in terms of development while they have a couple of veteran guys up with the big club. And the Devils ended up completely changing their entire goaltending tandem, as the first move that came down was the Devils ended up acquiring Jake Allen from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a conditional third-round pick in 2025. Allen also comes with 50% retention on his $3.85 million average annual contract. So the Devils won't be paying that much in terms of Jake Allen for the rest of this year, and certainly next year if the Devils do decide to keep Allen around. The third round selection, by the way, turns into a second if Allen plays 40 or more games next season in 2024-25. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. But Jake Allen was one of those guys that I talked about numerous times throughout the last couple of months as a guy that was more of a low risk, potentially medium reward, a guy who could be a very solid 1B goaltender or a backup to a top flight goaltender if and when the Devils do end up acquiring said 1A goaltender. And so I wasn't against making this move. I'm just against the timing of it all. And what's interesting is that Jake Allen spoke to the media recently and said that he did have the Devils originally in his no trade clause because of the fact that he wasn't sure what the Devils situation in net moving forward was going to be. At the time, it was still Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid. And so when he looked at it, he wondered to himself, where does he fit in all of this? So maybe that's a reason why the Devils didn't acquire or couldn't acquire Jake Allen earlier this year. Maybe Tom Fitzgerald was trying to do it earlier this year. That gives a little bit more clarity. But now with the Devils having a lot more uncertainty in net, not just this year, but moving forward, it's easier for Jake Allen, who is part of a 3 goaltending trio in Montreal, to come here and get a lot more ice time. Now, at the time of this recording, Jake Allen is still trying to get his work visa to play in the United States. He is with the team. He has been practicing, but is not legally allowed to play yet. Hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 days, he gets his work visa and can come in and play. So that was the first goalie move that the Devils made. Now, this next one that happened came pretty much right after the 3 p.m. Eastern deadline. Now, I've said this before, and it's still very true, that just because you make a deal that ends up getting official after 3 o'clock doesn't mean that it doesn't go through. So what I'm trying to say basically is this: you can make a deal at like 2:59 and you can make it official. You can make it a deal and you can still call it in after 3, just as long as you have everything in place. but you can't begin negotiations with another team at 3 p.m. or later. So a lot of deals ended up coming through and being official well after the deadline had already quote unquote passed. So this came out, and this was a bit more of a surprise. Not necessarily because of the guy that the Devils ended up acquiring, but who they ended up trading away to acquire um, this netminder, as the New Jersey Devils traded Vitek Vanacek to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Capo Kakinen. The Devils also give up a 7th round selection in this upcoming draft. So this came as somewhat of a surprise because number one, VTech still has another year or so left on his contract. So barring anything, he most likely will be with the San Jose Sharks next season. And the Devils acquire another low risk and somewhat medium reward guy, although his contract comes up at the end of the year. Now, here is what the reality of it is, of all of this is, and why the Devils made this move. Number one, the Devils wanted to have a completely new goaltending tandem for the rest of the year to probably allow Akira Schmid, who's already back down in Utica, and Nico Daws, who very much will probably follow him once Jake Allen is fully available to play. He'll go down, and they'll play out the rest of the year in Utica, and then probably next year as well, barring anything. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the Devils gave Vitek Vanacek's $3-ish million contract off the books completely, no salary retention or anything. And the Devils get an expiring contract in Capo Kakinen, who was pretty solid in his first game as a Devil back on Monday, stopping 23 of 25 shots in the loss to the New York Rangers. But they get him for the rest of the year and don't have to bring him back. And it gives the Devils a lot of cap flexibility. And Tom Fitzgerald even said it, that the biggest reason he traded for Capo Kakinen was to create financial flexibility going into the offseason to, quote unquote, as he put it, go big game hunting in terms of a goaltender. So I think the Devils have pretty much established that Jake Allen will certainly be back next year as the backup. Now the question is going to be, who will the Devils end up acquiring and going after in terms of goaltending in the offseason? And so I think when you look at it, the guys that come up are obviously Jacob Markstrom. I think Jussi Saros is another guy that comes up. I think that John Gibson probably becomes an option as well. There's, Linus Ullmark, whose name came up a couple of days and leading up right up to the trade deadline. There's a lot of different guys I think the Devils are going to be looking at. And I think it's without question that you're going to see one of those guys I mentioned in tandem with Jake Allen going into next year. So next season, the Devils are going to have a completely different goaltending tandem than they did at the start or certainly at the finish of this season. So those were the kind of the moves the Devils made. So they were half sellers and half buyers at this deadline, and they give some, stability in net and certainly better overall goaltending than they've had all year for the rest of this year. Doesn't end up changing anything? Probably not, but you never know. The Devils can still very well go on a run, but the offense has been very, very bad of late. You have, and you also have flexibility for next year to really get that main number one goaltender that you've been trying to get for quite some time now. So let me know what you guys think overall of the Devils trade deadline moves. Do you agree with it? Do you not? What did you want to see? What are your overall thoughts of everything that went down in terms of this trade deadline for the New Jersey Devils? Would love to get your guys' thoughts overall. So now we got to shift into this because obviously it's been the biggest topic of discussion over the last 48 hours or so, and that is what happened between Jonas Siegenthaler and Matt Rempe, as you can see by this picture here on YouTube, in Monday's loss to the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. Well, in the middle of the second period, Matt Rempe went elbow first and directly, as you can see on the video, that if you guys go on YouTube or wherever, you can see the clip, directly elbowed Jonas Siegenthaler with intent to hurt him. Siegenthaler was obviously injured and would not return to that game. And as of today, at the time of this recording on March 13th, Jonas Siegenthaler once again will be on the injured list as he is out with a concussion. And so who knows if he will come back. I don't think it's wise for him to come back at this point, but you never know. You never know. And we just got to see what happens moving forward. Matt Rempe ends up getting suspended 4 games without pay for elbowing Siegenthaler. And this occurred, I do apologize, it occurred less than a minute. It occurred like right at the end of the second period. And this is, there was obviously the Devils wanted to go after and retaliate. The refs didn't let it happen. Rempe ended up getting thrown out of the game. This is the second time that he's gotten thrown out of a game for an illegal hit on a Devils player. He did it to Nate Bastian earlier this year, and he did it again this time against Siegenthaler. He ended up waving like a little, twerp for whatever reason. And at the end of the day, this is all that Matt Rempe does. He is a big, tall rock. That's all he is. He doesn't really do much of anything else, doesn't have a lot of skill. He's basically a goon. That's what he is. And he throws his body around, and he's gotten into a lot of fights already in his early career. He's, made a lot of big hits like this, and he's now single-handedly injured 2 different Devils players who might very well be done for the year. And so I think the suspension was warranted. Do I think it's long enough? I don't really think it matters. But I think it just sends a message that you can't be doing this stuff. And so Matt Rempe's a young kid. He's going to have to learn from this. But as several Devils players and other media people mentioned over the last couple of days, that if Matt Rempe is in the lineup the final time the Devils and Rangers face off this year, which is going to be in April, he's going to have to answer the bell at some point. He's going to have to. He knows at this point that he's now injured 2 different Devils players, and at some point, someone is going to want him to fight again, and he better answer the bell. Otherwise, he's just a coward. He's just going to throw his body around, be physical, hurt people, and then not take accountability for it and answer the bell when he needs to. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything that's gone on with Rempe. Siegenthaler, second injury of the year, as he's pretty much going to be out for a significant period of time. And that's pretty much all I got with it. I'm pissed off because I felt that it was certainly unnecessary. I thought it was BS that Rempe did that. I think Rempe is a guy that, he seems to be a fan favorite of a lot of people, but this kid needs to learn how to be more disciplined than that. He can be physical. I have no problem with him being physical and being a rock like that. I have a problem with the fact that he just goes out there like crazy and tries to hurt people. And that's what he's done. That's literally what he's tried to do. And he'll deny it and other people will deny it, but that's the reality of it is. That's all he's been. So my response to Rempe is this. He needs to grow up. He needs to grow up and he needs to smarten up. He needs to not do things like that. He can be physical and get into fights. I have no issue with that. I have no issue. But doing things like you did to Bastian and then deliberately trying to elbow Siegenthaler in the face and in the head and basically hurting him, that's crossing the line. And then to not answer the bell there, I felt was very cowardly. And that's all I got to say about it. So let me know what you guys think of the whole situation with the hit, the suspension, and all of the aftermath that has happened and probably will happen later on this season. So now let's shift to some good news, shall we? Because I don't want this whole episode to be doom and gloom and everything like that. We did get some official news. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but the NHL did make it official yesterday as the New Jersey Devils will be traveling to Czechia to begin the 2024-25 season with a couple of games against Rasmus Dahlin and the Buffalo Sabres. So these games will be played in Prague, Czechia, at the O2 Arena on Friday, October 4th, and Saturday, October 5th. So it'll be a back-to-back to kind of open up the season. That's kind of funny how Devils' biggest enemy is truly the back-to-back. Andre Palat of the Devils, fun fact, owns a home in Prague and spends part of his offseason there. He also grew up about 3.5 hours away in a place called Frederick Mistek. Excuse me. I hope I said that correctly. I probably didn't, but I tried. So he grew up about 3.5 hours from Prague. So this will be the second time ever that the Devils will be a part of the Global Series. They were a part of it a few years back when they played over in Switzerland and Sweden, and that was a really, really awesome time. The NHL also followed them with kind of a behind-the-scenes training camp with the New Jersey Devils. That was really cool. I don't know if they'll do it again or not, but hey, the Devils now get a chance to finally go back and play overseas. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really excited for that, and it's a really kind of exciting and cool way to get the season off on hopefully a good foot next year. And certainly the team will look much different, I think, by the time you see them over in Prague in about 7 months from now. So lot of time between now and when the Devils are over there. But again, the Devils are officially going to be a part of the NHL's Global Series as they will play back-to-back games against the Buffalo Sabres over in Prague, Czechia. So let me know what you guys think. Are you excited? How do you feel about the overall situation? Are any of you thinking about going? Saving up that money and getting a chance to go over there and see the Devils play on the international stage, which is going to be a very, very cool opportunity for the Devils, for this young Devils team and the organization as a whole. So now let's get back to this season, as the Devils did make a couple of moves in terms of recalling some guys from Utica. We'll start with Santeri Hadaka, which honestly I'm pretty happy about. He's finally getting another opportunity to come back. I thought in the short time he was in New Jersey earlier this year, he played really, really well. This is a guy that I think, if he's developed correctly, could very well be a very, very good defenseman for this team moving forward. He's played 7 games this year with the Devils. He has 2 assists, but a very impressive plus-minus rating of +7. He's had kind of an up and down year with the Utica Comets. I think actually they put his stats up here. Yeah, in 41 games with Utica, Hadaka has 4 goals and 17 points with a plus-minus of +1. So with Hadaka coming up, that pretty much guaranteed that Siegenthaler was going to be on injured reserve. So Hadaka is going to get a really good opportunity here down the stretch to not only try to help this team win and maybe still make a run in the playoffs, but more importantly, showcase to this team that he deserves an opportunity to be with the big club starting next season. So that was the first couple of moves. And then earlier today, the Devils called up 2 more players, as they called up Tyler Witherspoon and Max Willman up with the big club. And both players are expected to meet with the team in Dallas, which is the beginning of the 3-game road trip, or really 4-game because they started in New York. Second of the 4-game road trip that they're on. Witherspoon, 54 games this year with the Comets, and he has 4 goals and 15 assists for 19 points. This is also his 3rd year with the Utica Comets. And Max Willman, most Devils fans have seen him before. He's been up with the big club before. He has 11 goals and 10 assists through 31 games with the Utica Comets. And with the Devils, he actually has a goal and an assist for 2 points. His only goal was a breakaway goal. I think it was shorthanded, if I'm not mistaken, in early November in a road win against the Chicago Blackhawks. So the Devils bringing in some younger players, some Utica guys. And look, I know what it kind of looks like. It probably looks like that the Devils are packing it in. And maybe so. Maybe that's really what this is all about. But I think for Hadaka, I think the main reason he's up there is simply put, Siegenthaler's hurt. They need a body in there, and he's going to get an opportunity to play. Witherspoon and Willman, they may get an opportunity. They may just be extra bodies. You're allowed, the rosters expand at this point, so the Devils are allowed to bring up a couple of guys. It hurts the Utica Comets, but the Devils have a couple of extra healthy bodies down the stretch here. Maybe an opportunity for some other guys to rest and get a game off and then go from there. So, it's just kind of what I expected. Again, you have Siegenthaler out, you have Dougie Hamilton still out, Bastian's out, so you do need some bodies, and that's exactly what the Devils did in terms of calling up these 3 players. So again, Santeri Hadaka, Tyler Witherspoon, and Max Willman all have been called up by the New Jersey Devils from the Utica Comets, and will all be with the team at least to start in Dallas tomorrow against the Stars. And speaking of the Stars, let's quickly look and wrap up today's episode with just kind of looking ahead to what the Devils have. So again, the Devils still have 3 games to go on this road trip. All these remaining 3 games are out west. You start with Thursday's game, 8 p.m. Eastern time in Dallas against the Stars. Then you have a back-to-back on the weekend. First, Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern in Arizona against the Coyotes. And then probably the biggest of the 3, and that is the defending Stanley Cup champions in Vegas, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time on TNT against somewhat new-look Vegas Golden Knights, with now Tomas Hertl and Noah Hanifin as well a part of that team. And then the Devils have a couple of home games after that. Interestingly enough, the 21st, next Thursday, so a week from this episode coming out, Tyler Toffoli and Colin Miller will already make their return to New Jersey when the Devils take on the Winnipeg Jets at home. So obviously the schedule does not get any easier. It continues to be such a grind here in the month of March. And, the playoff, uh, you know, potential is looking less and less and less. And I've said this before, I'm not going to give up on this team and believing that they can make the playoffs until they're mathematically out of it. There's still a huge opportunity that they're only 6 points out of it right now, behind the Red Wings and Islanders. And if you look at the Red Wings, they've lost 6 in a row. They've been playing horribly of late. But unfortunately for the Devils, the Islanders have really been red hot of late. So the Devils, there's still time, but they haven't been playing well at all. The offense has really kind of shriveled up over the last couple of games, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough, but we'll see. Hockey's a magical, unpredictable sport, and you never know what can happen. So Devils obviously making some changes for the now and for the future, and we'll see what the rest of this year and this offseason has to offer for this New Jersey Devils team.